The Goldberg story has been a real slow-moving nightmare that impacts on the booking for Kofi Kingston, Drew McIntyre, Big E, and even Brock Lesnar. I'm going to break it down for all of those individuals and how they are impacted. Firstly, the original plans for Drew McIntyre. You won't be too surprised by this. To start out with, what we already know before I go into what we don't. Yes, Goldberg is indeed currently lined up to take on Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam. We've been speculating about it. There's been a whole world of rumour, as Eleanor points out as well. But now's the first real solid report on it from Fightful. Hello Moxie, welcome to the show. Let's go into detail about the timeline, how this happened, and how it affects all of those others. Now firstly, the plan to use Goldberg is third in the list of options that the WWE were considering. First choice for SummerSlam would have been Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. Let's talk about why that's not happening first. The WWE have tried to throw a lot of money at Brock Lesnar, but ultimately the numbers became too high to interest a Brock Lesnar that the WWE believes simply isn't interested. The WWE have been essentially dangling the carrot until the carrot got too big and they were going to fall apart under the pressure of it. I'm talking numbers that all of us combined will likely never make in our entire lives. That's the sort of money we're talking here. It's Brock Lesnar, of course, have been dangling a lot. Brock has repeatedly turned down Bobby Lashley, to a point that it's become a running joke backstage. That said, Lashley is one of several who are not laughing. Lashley has been open about wanting Brock for a long time, and Meltzer's assertions that Brock isn't being used because he would end up losing aren't far from the case. Brock Lesnar does not want to lose to Bobby Lashley, so he's actively dodging the match. Lesnar will take a little more time before returning, possibly for less money, once he is no longer lined up against Lashley. Apparently the reason for this is because he doesn't want to potentially damage his future in the MMA and the UFC world. Bobby Lashley is a genuine combat athlete. Brock Lesnar does not want to lose to genuine combat athletes, so he's dodging him. That or the WWE will pay an extortionate amount even greater than the extortionate quote already being figured, and he will then take the loss. The most extreme scenario here is that Lashley leaves, because I promise you this is going to come up at Lashley's next contract negotiation, just like it did at the last one. The second choice, the backup option for Lesnar, was Drew McIntyre, which is unlikely to really surprise anyone, and this is one of the big changes that has been made. The WWE have intentionally kept their options open with McIntyre, despite the whole McIntyre will never challenge Lashley again stipulation. The WWE had the option to give McIntyre the briefcase, allowing him the opportunity to challenge Lashley one last time at SummerSlam. So what changed? Well, for McIntyre, kind of everything. When the WWE changed their minds and went for Goldberg, they used McIntyre's availability to put him into the feud with Mahal. The decision was only made to go with Goldberg a little over 2 weeks ago, and McIntyre's role was changed with that. You can literally see Goldberg's name leaking to shareholders and Fox executives when McIntyre dropped from being the betting favourite for Money in the Bank. Always follow the money. Always. Shareholders have been very, very good sources over the years, just to give a little hint on that one, because I promise you, they learn things first and they then start making more money by having that shareholder insider information. It's called insider trading. It's illegal. They still do it. They don't get arrested. They're rich. The way that it's affected Kofi and Big E is because Kofi Kingston was in that list, but he was beneath Goldberg. Kofi could have had a rematch at SummerSlam after wrestling at Money in the Bank, and of course Big E would have been affected in that, but Big E was affected by the change to the draft situation. So that's a whole other story at the moment, even though Big E is someone who's very high up there as regards potential Money in the Bank winners. It might take that to make the change now to actually get him involved with Bobby Lashley. Also not really considered as to this spoiler when it was released. You have to consider that when this spoiler of Goldberg was released, They didn't choose to wait until Monday. If they'd released this on Monday, we wouldn't automatically know 100% that Kofi Kingston's not winning. Now we basically knew 100% that Kofi Kingston wasn't winning. But now we actually genuinely know 100% that Kofi Kingston isn't winning. Please do keep your comments coming in. I will still be answering them once I've finished with my little script. And so we've landed on Goldberg, whose second match this year was being held for Saudi Arabia. He still could wrestle there, as his contract essentially allows the WWE to buy another match if they can agree to it with Goldberg himself. Goldberg is extremely unlikely to win the championship, and honestly, his use of the Royal Rumble wasn't half bad. So I see this as a potential positive. I know it's not a popular choice, but it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It allows McIntyre versus Mahal to play out, which has been moderately entertaining so far. I've actually quite enjoyed that, and it gives McIntyre a little time out of the main event scene. It also means Lesnar takes a little time further away. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And finally, it allows Lashley to down a legend, a rite of passage for practically all WWE champions that the company actually cares about. Yes, I know Kofi Kingston is not in that number. Goldberg is a big name to casuals, and this will make more of a star of Lashley. Finally, the big problem of course is that Lashley, from day one of his return to the company, has wanted Lesnar. I want Lashley versus Lesnar. Everybody wants Lashley versus Lesnar except for Brock Lesnar. The WWE ideally needs to make this happen before they have to negotiate a new contract for Lashley, because to be honest, they've made a lot of mistakes with Lashley's booking so far. Do we remember when he used to spank himself? We should. It was awful. Let's catch up with the chat and see what people are saying. Firstly, about Lashley versus Goldberg. After that, I'll talk about other things, but I'll focus on that first. Moxie is suggesting The Fiend versus Bobby. That doesn't seem likely at this point. Goldberg is definitely the guy. Eleanor says, I don't mind Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley as long as Goldberg doesn't win. Honestly, that's kind of where I am as well. Jonesy thinks he won't win anyway. Ricky H, welcome to the show, says another 2-minute Goldberg match then. I don't think it'll be a 2-minute. I think it'll be quite similar to the WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar, where it was finisher spam and it was just a lot of fun. Eleanor says, why does Brock ask for so much money? Ultimately because the WWE will pay it eventually. The more he asks for, the more he tends to get. It's like when Tom Cruise or Johnny Depp are on a film and they're offered 500,000. They ain't getting out of bed for that. They know they have better offers elsewhere. And the thing is, at the moment, Goldberg's happy to sit out. He's genuinely happy to. Jonesy says, I hope it's only another 2-minute match. I'll never forget the time he ruined The Fiend and Kevin Owens. WWE booking ruined them, let's be honest. Sean says, is McIntyre still in the match? He's still in the Money in the Bank ladder match, yes, but his booking has been changed. Jonesy says, I'm actually not even opposed to them using Goldberg, but why does it always have to be him challenging for a world title? He has no reason to win. Goldberg could be used in a fresher way instead of the same shit every time. Eleanor rightly counters, his match against Ziggler was fun. It's mostly just because when you put him at the top level, he is a draw. He is a genuine ratings draw, and we do have to consider that. Because right now, the WWE are sort of desperately looking for ratings draws, and that will be a little bit of information that I'll be sharing in a little moment.